But for some reason, the celestial matrix, and I believe the angularity of the earth has a lot to do with that. What's
Mm.
interesting about this diagram is in Nadi astrology, there's an ancient legend about a serpent that snuck in when this solar system was being formed, and it was known as Rahu and Ketu, which is the moon's north and south nodes. Now, any astronomer will laugh at this. They'll say, well, wait a minute, that's just the eclipse points, right? It's where the orbit of the Earth, the orbit of the moon, and the orbit of the plane of the sun all align. And those are called nodal points of joining. But on the other hand, they're actually right. Why? Because the south node is the liberation known as moksha. It's a strange word in Sanskrit and Tamil that means liberation of the incarnational forces upon the spirit, psyche, and soul. Well, isn't it interesting that the astronomy is simply where eclipse points are? See that? You can see that's the aleph, right? And see, aleph is the first letter, which is also A in the Aramaic and Hebrew alphabet. And each planet has sigils, or you could say a spiritual symbol. They call them angelic squares. In the Far East, they call them yantras. And many people in cymatics believe that these were sacred geometry that were formed by the chants that were done with the mantras when they would do that, and when they would actually chant the mantras. So again, this goes full circle back to we're in a matrix. We're literally in a spiritual matrix of the soul. And it's very interesting because what you're studying, I think the geometric configurations and the magnetics and all this is very accurate. I think we're likely to see something by 2025. And I have been talking a lot on my YouTube channel about the United States. The United States of America was again formed by the
Oh,
Masons.
there you go. Yeah, let me just interject for everybody here, because
Sure.
Jeff had asked me when I sent the charts over that I was doing on my own research information. He was asking me specifically what types of chart that was, because there were all those different drop downs on the particular programs I was using, and I was like, I don't know. I just found the one that was just out there, and I just put the dates in it and was working around trying to figure out with the gas giants and the configurations. So,
Sure.
all those drop downs that you had there, maybe could explain it a little better, because I'm yeah, because that's what I came up with, were those the triangulations on the different, and then it squared off, and then there was a hexagon in there, and just the way that the planets were setting up energetically, there definitely seemed to be something there that I think
Yep.
would affect humanity. And I'll come back to it again. All these changes we are seeing so rapid fire with this tidal wave of extreme heavy stories coming in by the day, not the month or year now. It's just to put out a scatter wave. So I think that we are not in the proper state to receive what is inbound here during this. And I come back to the only reason I kept saying the zero magnetic field is there's a possibility when the Earth passed through the Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune interconnected toroid field, and then we have the sun in its toroid field. When the Earth loops through that, we're going to have some electromagnetic effect or canceling magnetics on our planet going through the block wall that could allow some sort of infusion of information into the brain, because there would be, and again, Jeff, I'm going to ask you about this. If we come into a zero magnetic state of any shape, form, or degraded or depleted magnetic fields, like how does that work with the hemispheres of the human physiology in terms of, non-functionality, paranoia, anger?
Imagine, if you will, a glimpse into the possible outcome of a million mistakes. What you are about to watch is a nightmare. It is not meant to be prophetic. It need not happen. It's the fervent and urgent prayer of all men of goodwill that it never shall happen. But in this place, in this moment, it does happen. In the midst of it comes unexpectedly over the phone the announcement of the President of the United States, the warning from the very top declaring a state of emergency of suspected enemy missiles approaching. It's anyone's guess where they might land. What city will be obliterated? How many could be lost? And last but not least, will it be me? Will it be my family, friends, my square inch on the map? Minutes go by and nothing. Right as you exhale a breath of relief, an instant wave of horror treks down your spine and a sinking feeling in the pits of your stomach. Just then, the power goes out. The only light you see is the glow of your phone. Shining in your face, the icons of terror. Low battery, and even more frightening, the symbol for connection to information and loved ones gone. You try the landline in your office, desperate to contact family. Nothing at all, just a bone-chilling empty silence. Panic-stricken, you blindly forage for your car keys. Success. Something in this nightmare of a day has gone right. Now it's a desperate, mad dash for your car. Your mind now in a near-intellectual paralysis. Logic a struggle as you cope with a Gatling gun barrage of horrific ideas of what your family might be going through in this very moment. Miraculously, your car starts and you begin your seemingly apocalyptic drive to locate your kin. As you pass the first stop sign, the sight of civic decay is already bearing its nasty head as you speed past fights in the streets, looting and a complete halt of any semblance of an evolved civilization. To your right, a large fire. As angry, fear-filled citizens with their arms full of grocery items run from what used to be your local food market ran by a mom and pop's couple now collapses into a bonfire of dreams. Because of the commotion, your attention span has been stolen. Now before your automobile is a violent crowd. They have now surrounded your car, banging on the metal, bashing at the glass, screaming incoherently. What just a second ago was the road to salvation, now a deadly trap of circumstance and fear blocking your escape. This can't be happening, repeatedly echoing in your head as you start to mumble the phrase in a shrieking, inaudible, childlike tone to yourself. The trepidation now filling your lungs like a poison fog, suffocating and smothering in its certainty. Just then, as your heart and soul seem to be having synergistic perturbations, an alarm blares, overwhelming your senses. Immediately you recall the warning of missiles. You close your eyes and expect the end. But the alarm morphs into a sweet, familiar beckoning of your alarm clock. You open your eyes and switch off the welcoming timepiece. A warm filling of relief as you realize your family is safe in their beds, and no pending doom is written in the stars today. For a split second, you ponder the poor people of your vision, and it reinforces your confidence that you have already prepared for the any scenario. You have peace of mind your children will eat and thrive, because you invested in their future to give some stability if any break in the normality of life happens. You invested in heaven's harvest. The you in this story was a fictional you. But do you get the feeling something unthinkable is going to happen soon? I sure do. The problem is we probably won't see it coming. One morning you'll wake up and the world will be a much different place. Don't panic, prepare. Smart folks are investing in emergency food now. A wise man once said, "It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it." Heaven's Harvest is the nation's leader in emergency food storage. It's the only investment you get 100% of your money for, even better than gold. Survival experts recommend the 3-month emergency food kit. Go to heavensharvest.com, use the code ADAPT at checkout and save a mind-blowing 15%.
And now on with the video. Or if it comes to a zero field, then how would humans respond where there was no magnetic resonance in the brain to even allow them to process or even have thought? Would you still be able to even to breathe? Because well, I don't know. We've got a lot of questions.
A lot of questions. And, I don't know, I have any snappy answer to that one. I mean, I think every single one of us are potentially, you had a viewer and a participant on your multi-channel thing I was watching this morning on one of your podcasts. And I love that because the lady had said, she had mentioned the chakras. Well, that's an interesting point here, because when you look at the chakras, the Vedic and Nadi astrology says breath is synonymous with spirit. Well, isn't that interesting? Because every breath we take, just like the police song, is passing through all these chakras. Well, notice Saturn is the root chakra, which also rules the reproductive organs. And of course, in Kundalini yoga and Bhakti yoga and all these different types of yogas, one of the methods is to try and unfold that karma and get that to release. Well, what you're talking about, the celestial alignments, definitely seem to have an effect on the physical mechanisms. Because remember, if we go back to this model, and this is probably the most important element to look at, is we are dumbed down. Remember that, in fact, there's an old legend in the text called the Sefer Haggadah, and we can all see it. We've all got it right there. That's called the mark to make us forget, or the mark of silence. There's many different terms for that. But essentially, they say that this is forming in the womb, or might be made right as that angel ties the spirit, psyche, and soul to the embryo by silver cord at conception. So we are clearly in some type of a very divine spiritual matrix. All the planets are combinations of the circle, which is the seed. I believe the stars are portals to the upper dimensions, and hence, scientists are running around, well, they're plasma, they're fission. Other people say, no, they're electric. I don't know what they are. My opinion is that they are certainly life-giving to all life here on this planet, for sure. And I think they're transmitters. They're almost like satellite transmitters of divine energy that is exceedingly complex, that boils down into the entire molecular structures of this Yetziratic dimensions. And that is the multiple universes and portals. Just last night, I was out in Malibu, and I ride a motorcycle because of the traffic here. And it was late at night. I came outside and I looked out over the bay. In fact, it was right over Johnny Carson's house, where Johnny Carson used to live on the, it's called, I forget what, Point Doom, Zuma Beach is where it is. We're right up by that. And I looked and I saw this yellow sphere. And I went, that's kind of odd looking. And the second I put my gaze on it, it just rocketed away. And I have talked to people in the military, and these are really smart guys who have been tracking quote unquote UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them. There's a huge shelf underneath Zuma Beach, just out in the edge of the ocean out there. And it's of course under the water. And they claim that they are tracking craft that goes so fast they can't even measure it. It's not, the propagation is so fast from the time they come out of that water, it's instantaneous. And they're not even apparently lifting any water. This is like they're dimensionally shifting out of here. And of course, now we're seeing more and more disclosure. And I think the government's been involved with extraterrestrials forever. And in fact, we can go back to the oldest text, citing the Sumerians and the cuneiform tablets. That's all about that. They've been talking about extraterrestrial beings. Look at Admiral Byrd. He was forced down with a squadron underneath Antarctica. And they were told, we will not let you guys blow this planet up. So, it may be a lot more like Men in Black than we know. And there's something very spiritual going on, as well as a lot of demonic stuff going on. And when you look at the matrix of the solar system, everything is the seed of the sun. Dad puts the seed in mom's womb, right? Farmer puts the seed in the ground. The womb and the earth is synonymous with nurturing of the divine celestial seed. And then spirit becomes manifest on the cross, which is the four elements: sunrise, noon, sunset, midnight, also representing the four archangels of earth, air, fire, and water. And, I really have to say, all the rest of the glyphs of the planets are derived from those three symbols. Look at Saturn is the cross over the crescent of the moon. It is literally previously concretized energies that now become manifest. If you look at this diagram, which is an elegant diagram, I love this diagram because it essentially shows that Saturn operates above consciousness. And all your ancient astronomers said Saturn was the end of time, of the perception of time. And the Vedic astrology say Saturn represents, you could say, the karmic gunny sack, for lack of a better expression, of what we carry around from lifetime to lifetime. And I do readings all the time that are amazing how accurate it is when we have Saturn aspects, particularly Saturn's transit of the moon, which the United States has going on this fall. The United States birth charts of nations have the same thing. The Roman Empire divided right on a Pluto return. and it divided, and it was destroyed in the second one. And I can tell you, if we go back,
I've heard you talk about the Pluto return when I was watching a few of your videos as well. So the U.S. going to look like, now just the announcement of Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates going away from any dollar sales for oil, except for the U.S. buying the oil. Then what?
I have a client who is a CFO in one of those oil companies, and he told me literally, this is the first time in the history of the oil industry that India has purchased in the Royal. First time ever. So way bye-bye, folks, to your petrodollar.
Well, that's going to be a tough one for those out there. I mean, we're going to have all these celestial changes, the planetary Earth changes, and then all these economic changes. It's going to be, well, a head spinner for quite a few. And as you go through those charts, I'm looking at that, seeing those triangles or the points that are coming through on that in the houses with the directed energies is the way I would look at some of that.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah. Yep, it really is. I have to say, the celestial matrix, astronomers today in the hard sciences will tell us, well, the planet has a specific gravity, has a frequency, has certain gases and masses and all that. But when we really look at astrology, has separated so much from science because it's looking at the humanistic meaning of what it means. And I like where you're going. You're right up the middle, because you're saying, well, wait a minute. Now we can see science data of magnetics and various different, gravitational issues that are also affecting us. If we get an axis tip, I remember in 1977 coming out of the theater, a friend of mine owned a theater. He said, Jeff, you got to see this movie. It's Late Great Planet Earth by, Orson Welles narrating. And we were supposed to have an axis tip in 1985. 1,000-mile-an-hour winds. And, we are having the magnetic poles drastically shift. And it is a potential possibility. We could see either a slow or fast axis tip. Boy, if you want to screw up the new one world order, that'll do it. And I think you're wise to tell people to grow your own food right now and become more self-sustaining. Because we've also got an effort going on in this world to, again, incarcerate humanity. COVID happened exactly on a Saturn-Pluto geocentric conjunction. See, and notice what I did here. I went through, and all the data you gave me, I looked at the 2024, October 23rd alignment in helio, but then I went down here and looked at it in what we call geo. See, you can tell which chart I'm on, because right here it'll say either geocentric or it'll say heliocentric. And notice whenever you see the sun in a chart, instantly you're looking at what we call a geocentric chart, meaning it's Earth-based. You could say the Earth is right in here, and all these symbols are geometric aspects, squares, trines, and oppositions, which is geometry, which all have specific meanings in astrology or astronomy. And squares are always changed. They're not easy because they mix incongruent elements like water and fire, or they will intermit with air and water. They're not congruent. That's why squares are a problem. Trines are so good, the 120-degree aspect, because it joins like elements. So there's a lot to cover in a short show like this, but I can tell you astronomy is literally geometry. It's geometry of the planets. And what you're citing is the heliocentric methods of these alignments, which is very valid too. And I kind of welcome this, because I never get to talk about heliocentric much because nobody cares, but you're extrapolating this to the world. You can see this is the October 79 alignment that you had sent me. And again, you could tell we're in a heliocentric chart. Why? Because we see the Earth. That little green circle with the cross in it is the Earth. Notice if you look here, you don't see the sun anywhere. Why? Because this is the sun. So this is the alignment of everything from what an astronomer would see, not an astrologer, because astrologers tend to hover towards geocentric charts based on our Earth. So what you're looking at here is what you sent me. I can put up the two charts side by side. This is the helio. And there we go. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, Ken, you broke up there for a second. So what does that mean for humanity, good, bad, or ugly, the way you're looking at and interpreting these different aspects in the different heliocentric or geocentric views?
Well, I'm doing this comparing your data that you had discovered, which I like. I think this shows a celestial change. See, the 79 is on the outer wheel, 79 AD. This inner wheel you can see is October of 2024. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities. They're not exact by any means, but there's a lot of similarities. You can see Jupiter is somewhat close. And, you have to be careful. Astronomy and astrology have gotten separated. But if you take your hand and you hold it up to two planets in the sky at arm's length, that's about a 15-degree division when you look outside with your hands. Well, in astrology, we have programs that tell us. So you can see here, we've got just about that amount of distance here. You can see Jupiter is at 12 degrees, 17 minutes. And in the 2024 chart, and in this AD 79 chart, it's at 27. They're just about 15 degrees apart. That's very close. And astrologers and astronomers think a lot differently. These are two completely different worlds when you talk to astronomers and celestial mechanics versus astrologers, because astrologers use a whole different set of parameters and rules. But I would agree with you. This astronomy is somewhat close. There's no doubt about it. The gas giants are still in square to the Earth and each other, but you can see Neptune here is quite a distance from where the placement was in 79.
I'll tell you why. Because Neptune was leading that one, and this time Jupiter is leading through those two. Between Neptune and Jupiter, you see that they make the outer portion of the square. Mm-hmm. Or the inner portion, excuse me, but one leads the other in front of. So that one's explained. And again, it must be over that 2,000 years of orbits going through, and this speed, and they finally one moves in front of the other. But that's the reason that is off, because if you do look at the 79 AD chart with the 2024 chart, you'll see that there's a different planet leading that square.
Yep, it's the Jupiter, right? Yeah. I can tell you, again, this is interesting stuff to look at, because, again, I don't get many people wanting heliocentric charts. We were doing this stuff, Arch Crawford and I, he's a Wall Street astrologer. I know Bill Meridian and others. We're spending quite a bit of time looking at heliocentric alignments to stock issues. We didn't find it as accurate on terrestrial-based stuff, meaning companies. The geocentric came up to be a little more accurate. But I think where you're going in terms of galactic changes, solar system changes, and global changes, this might just actually hold a lot of water here. What I noticed is, going back to the good old US of A and COVID and what has happened, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, the ancients knew that the major planets of Jupiter and Saturn had huge trigger points on changes in society. And my experience is they're absolutely right. About every 1,000 years, it's not exact, Jupiter and Saturn join. And then they have what we call sub-conjunctions, which is about every 200 to 240 years. It's a little closer to 240. It's not exact, but it's close. You get mutation conjunctions. Well, coming back to the United States, I believe that the Masons were very well aware that in the 1700s, we had a new Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in a fire trine. See, Aries is fire. and those were the biggest ones. Those only happen about every 1,000 years. They knew that this modern industrial revolution was coming. And I believe the United States was divinely conceived. In fact, read Manly P. Hall's book called The Secret Destiny of America. And he, of course, Manly P. Hall, who I had a chance to meet in the 80s. He was getting pretty old, but a nice guy, really interesting guy, very mysterious. And he was very much into Masonry. He was a 33-degree Mason. And the Masons have been hated by the religions, particularly the Roman Catholic Church. But I also encourage people to read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And I can tell you that's done more for humanity so far than anything else I've seen. It's certainly allowed the freedom of any individual, and it's under attack right now. And we had a mutation conjunction ending the Industrial Revolution and beginning this new high-tech Psychozoic era, which basically happened in the winter solstice of 2020. And the reason it did is it went into an air trine. And I can tell you, it's going to get like the Jetsons. And they want transhumanism. I really think that these elites actually think they can wipe out half to 3/4 of the human race and put in transhumanism and AI and replace us. And I'm not so sure this is all just humans doing this. And there seems to be a war going on for the souls of humanity. And this gets into deep stuff, but there is a lot of texts that talk about how the soul can get entrapped here on the lower worlds of Asaya. And it has direct connection to consciousness. And these alignments you're talking about, I think between now and 2025, we're going to see the fate of America. And I've been talking a lot about this on my YouTube channel, where the United States birth chart literally has a Pluto return. That's literally destruction, or Phoenix rising out of the ashes. And we look at the political mayhem that's going on right now. A lot of people are really pissed off. I have never seen a divided country this divided since probably, I wasn't around, but the Civil War. And we have eerie symbolism very close to that. Very close. We have a Neptune opposition Neptune on the United States coming in this fall. We have Saturn transiting.
What does that mean? What does that mean, though, a Neptune opposition Neptune?
Oh, Neptune opposition Neptune is classically subterfuge, trickery, bamboozlement. It's somebody trying to blow smoke up your rear end. It's that simple. Here, watch, I'll show it to you. This is what we call a graphic ephemeris. And you can see this is the United States Sibley chart based on July 4th, 1776. The reason it's the Sibley chart is because it was named after a man named Ebenezer Sibley, who was a Mason, and he was purported to have recorded the time the boys started dipping their pens into the inkwell and signing the Declaration of Independence. So you could see the first Neptune opposition in the sidereal zodiac happened here, April of 2023. It's coming back again right here, October 3rd. And it goes backwards up here to retrograde and stations again, and then goes direct again. So this is why we get this undulation. Well, the last time Neptune did what it's doing was 180 years ago. You see, that was, when it was doing every 180 years, Neptune approximately goes around the chart. We also just completed a Neptune square Mars. That happened right before the Civil War. See, these aspects are repeating themselves. What's unlike the Civil War is we have the Pluto return starting next year. That's the first hit. You can see right in February of 2024. It comes back again right here in July of 2024. And the final aspect is right at the end of the year in 2025. So this is aligning a lot with your work, looking at these gas giants square. And we also have Saturn stationing over the United States moon. See, if you follow, I know this is a little hard to follow, but these dashed lines are the birth chart of the United States. And wherever we have an intersection, these glyphs all equal different types of transit aspects. See, an opposition looks like a little figure eight. A trine looks like a triangle. See, a conjunction or 0 degrees is the circle of the lineup, like that. So you can, this is a wonderful tool. So you can see there's the Pluto return right here 3 times next year. So this has never happened to the United States before, like it's happening. And if you look at the mundane world, what's happening? They're shutting down the petrochemical industry, while at the same time, the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates like insanity. And I can tell you, they're about to do it again. The last time the Fed increased interest rates during a deep recession, and we are in a deep recession, I don't care what anybody says, was right before the Great Depression. And it's interesting, I went back, you precipitated me to look at some heliocentric models. Do you know that the stock market crash of 1929 also had a heliocentric alignment that was very tough, with the Earth conjuncting Saturn, which it does every year, but also the squares in there. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about, how trying to get people to get ready for these changes. I mean, you can clearly see, even if you're not even aware and just hear say on the street, even if you don't have a TV, even if you don't listen to the radio, even if you don't listen to, it's still all out. You would hear about it, the disruption in our society, but it's coming into something levels and orders of magnitude different this time. And you've just shown that and alluded to that, why that's happening. So
like never before.
Yeah, like never before. So the intensity on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 10.
It might be a 12.
No.
It's like Spinal Tap, might be 15. Because literally, I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. I remember Kennedy getting killed, and I can tell you this is virtual insanity. They never before have we had the energy systems being shut down. 1, 2, 3, 4. There, can you hear me now?
There you go. Yeah. Got you back.
Yeah, I mean, this internet's really wacky today.
I know that's a thing. It's been like that too. And everybody out there, please have a backup for your comms, because, experiencing these interruptions, you could just expect if something really big happens that the communications would be cut. So at least you'd need a CB radio or a ham radio or marine radio, just something so you could have communication, even in your local area, just to know what's going on, where your local roads are closed, where people might be moving to, what kind of dangers there are out there. Please have some other type of communication. And those aren't really expensive to buy those devices either.
That's right. I would tell you, now is a time I'd be watching money, definitely storing up some extra food, and, growing your own food is wonderful. I really have to say, they are attacking America and globally from all angles. I've never seen this before, this severe. I had a grandmother who was born in 1907. She remembers the crash of 29. She remembers actually World War I, World War II, the stock market crash, and all the way up. She died in 2009. And I can tell you, she said, we thought the world was ending. And even then, though, they weren't trying to destroy the economy and the infrastructure like they are now. This is a direct attempt to destroy Middle America. And it's kind of eerie, because this isn't just Biden. This is clearly being orchestrated. George Carlin might have been right. Forget the politicians. You have owners. They own this place. It's at the top of the funnel where all the money's being poured in. And it's very manipulative. And the astrology absolutely shows this right now, whether you believe it or not. It's amazing. And I find it so accurate, it's eerie.
It reminds me of Jupiter Ascending, the way you just said that the planet is owned. Has anybody's ever seen that movie? I think they let truth out in this movie of truly what is going on in this solar system, or even, regionally in our star system here. But I just found that movie so fascinating. It just I always, and the way you described it as a top down, you have owners. I'm just thinking, okay, farm earth here. The changes are all encompassing. And, the money, as I was told, when we come back down into this 2.0 lockdown thing, if it were to occur, they're only going to allow you to purchase things using credit card. They're going to close all the stores, already knowing that there's going to be so much pushback and noncompliance.
It's digital currency.
Yeah, they're going to close the stores on purpose. So you can only swipe credit card. And I encourage everybody out there, as you're driving around and doing your waking day type of things, if you're in a big box store, a Sam's Club, a Walmart, a Target, whatever it would be, Costco, if you're starting to see these lanes being installed where it's a drive-through lane where it's actually a pickup lane, we remember these from a couple of years ago. If you start to see multiples and multiples of those, not 1, 2, or 3, but like 24 in a parking lot, this would be an indicator that they are getting ready to move on this. So I've seen a couple, different videos, reports of something like this happening in smaller towns. So I'm going to go over this week and drive through 2 different towns and see if it is. But these are the kind of this is the kind of thing you're up against to shift the money into a full digital system after this collapse or reduction of the use of the US dollar. We're going to see all types of, just strange things happening. And I think people are going to behave strangely when their life is literally the bedrock of reality turns to quicksand and they start sinking in it. They're really not going to know how to handle it. And then you're going to have all these electromagnetic changes at the same time on top of this. Wow, it's a powerful time, I'm sure. If we look back in history, it'll be one of the biggest.
Yep, that's what it shows. It shows this is virtual insanity. And this has happened before, it appears. It really does. It's, if you go back through history, and in fact, some of the real history that they haven't obfuscated, we've seen totalitarianism like this before. Now, I think they are more emboldened than ever because of this new digital era. They knew this was coming. I think we're in a time where they know an event is coming soon, and that they knew when to strike. I was starting to say, I studied with a guy years ago who's from India, and he did astrology for these bankers, Rothschilds and what have you, in London. And he told me, so they don't make a move without knowing when the cycles are right to do so. And that's called electional astrology. In fact, George Washington is shown here, I'll show you in this mural. Washington was actually laying the cornerstone of the foundation at a good astrological time. And that's actually a guy dropping the cornerstone into the ground. And they did a big ritual. They knew spirit was concretized into a building at the time you commenced its official beginning. Just like a birth chart. Very interesting.
And when is the ending of that cycle, or that?
Well,
like this is ending. Whatever we're in right now seems like we're at ending juncture for sure. The picture's so clear that we're at an end point of something and a new beginning into another part.
That's right. And COVID showed up with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction is a new era. And these guys knew. They struck. I don't care what anybody says, this was a very, very coordinated effort with this whole situation that happened from 2020 forward. And in a number of ways, not just COVID, but this whole orchestration. And I think we have a battle right now going on literally between the globalists and the nationalists. And the globalists so far are winning. Will the nationalists come back, and will we have an opportunity to win? Well, God seems to operate in very mysterious ways. And like that diagram shows, no matter what the evil spirits and the demonic forces do down here, they have to remember creation drips down from the divinity up above, and it does. And this is found also in many of the ancient texts in the Vedantic, where they talk about creation, and then there were lower demigods, we call them archangels, that literally ruled in hierarchical structure over this particular planet. And I call this place the soul cauldron, and it just may be. And the celestial influences sure seem to affect what's happening here. And I think we have to remember we're spiritual beings having a physical experience, and no matter what happens on the physical plane, we don't die. The spirit, psyche, and soul seems to definitely leave the body and go to other places. Many of us may end up in the astral worlds, reincarnate. Many of us may move on. And I think it's a direct function of knowledge and consciousness and the dissipation of karma that makes that happen. You can see it in the Nadi astrology, where you can see where a soul is more likely to be advanced in its evolution or not. You can see they're called yogas and Nadi configurations. And I have literally looked at thousands and thousands of charts where I've seen certain people will have events happen in early childhood or throughout life that are dramatically affecting what happened to them the rest of their life. And there's no other explanation other than it's a karmic release of energy boomeranging back in, either for good or ill.
So as you look forward into these years and months, A, nothing's forever, and B, you are going to be reconnected with the creator itself. And that's such a hard word to use because it's indescribable. I really believe that there's not enough words in the English language or any combination of all languages on the planet to describe in full what that vibrational frequency, that base frequency, and that consciousness that holds everything together. And it's just makes me sound like a buffoon even trying to describe it using words. They're not powerful enough resonance wise, or they can't really paint the full picture of something that is so vast and so multi-dimensional. And so, I mean, even if you look at the size of our known galaxy now, which has doubled in size and doubled in age suddenly, I mean, that consciousness that holds all that together, just at the base level of what you consider molecules and atoms, just that frequency alone to hold that together, that's like 1/5 of 1/8 of 1 quadrillionth of what that is. See, again, I can't even describe it using words, so I'm going to stop.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. See, the conscious mind, we ain't smart enough. I can certainly say I'm not, to figure out creation, because we're not wired that way in these particular states of consciousness. That doesn't mean we're not smart enough, but using this lower conscious apparatus known as the mind, which I believe is really a conscious attenuator that allows us to comport through the 5 physical senses and into this particular world. Now, it does appear that we certainly could all be telepathic and be much more consciously expanded while still in this body. But for some reason, the celestial matrix, and I believe the angularity of the earth has a lot to do with that. What's interesting about this diagram is in Nadi astrology, there's an ancient legend about a serpent that snuck in when this solar system was being formed. And it was known as Rahu and Ketu, which is the moon's north and south nodes. Now, any astronomer will laugh at this. They'll say, well, wait a minute, that's just the eclipse points, right? It's where the orbit of the earth, the orbit of the moon, and the orbit of the plane of the sun all align. And those are called nodal points of joining. Well, if you talk to many of the spiritual people and yogis in India, they'll tell you, oh, the whole physical world's an illusion, right? And I say, well, drop a brick on your foot and call me on the first of the month. It's not necessarily an illusion. But on the other hand, they're actually right. Why? Because the south node is the liberation known as moksha. It's a strange word in Sanskrit and Tamil that means liberation of the incarnational forces upon the spirit, psyche, and soul. Well, isn't it interesting that the astronomy is simply where eclipse points are? And I can tell you, I've examined this. One of the things I found early studies of Nadi astrology is if K2 joins over your natal Saturn in your birth chart, which it will do so every 18 and a half years, because that's how long it takes to go around, or you have Saturn transiting K2, you will experience dramatic changes. Now, sometimes it'll be health, Sometimes it'll be good, sometimes it'll be bad, but it always brings major changes. So these eclipse points, it's literally like a celestial matrix that influences the physical body. Ayurvedic astrology, medical astrology is stunning stuff. It really is. My mother got me into that. And she was trying to get allopathic medicine to maybe recognize, some of the doctors, the importance and utility of astrology. And I could tell you, I've got a lot of doctor friends who, even in surgeries, they've said, wow, we follow procedure to the T, but there are certain days, no matter what we do, it just never goes right. And I said, well, look, on this day you had, malefic aspects from either the moon or some other planet at the time that procedure started. So even though they're following protocol to the T, things don't usually go as well as they could, either in the healing process or the way it ended up going, when it happens on good times. And I do a lot of surgery elections for people, where they'll check with their doctors when they can do it, and then I'll give them a good day to pick when the doctor can do it, especially an elective surgery. And selling houses, we find selling a house, when you sign with the realtor and put it on the market or plant the sign in the ground or load it up the internet, has a huge effect on how quickly or long it takes for that to sell. And it's pretty amazing. I've had people have stuff sit on the market for 2 years, and then we take it off and put it on at a good time, and they sell it for more than they were asking for, and quickly. It can be weeks or months, and they sell it. So very interesting stuff. This whole element of electional astrology, taking trips. I can tell you I've taken so many trips where every time it's good energy, it goes good. When it's bad energy, I could tell you horror stories of people who took off at bad times, and it didn't go well. It was not a pleasant trip, or it could have potentially had some real problems. And this is, again, the matrix of energies that are implanted. We are literally on a spiritual, you could say, manifestation. It's where spirit manifests. That's the best way to say it, where spirit manifests. And that's exactly what Nadi astrology says. That's why the Eastern horizon is called the ascendant in your birth chart. Wherever you're born on the globe, in whatever country you're at, if you took a laser and shot it out into deep space at the exact moment in time, spirit becomes manifest at first breath. That is interesting, because there's actually an angel that I look up on the Eastern horizon, and it's so accurate, it's creepy, on how it influences the life. And yes, we have free will, but it's interesting how it's guided by the basic constituents of our perception of reality, called our personality.
Ooh, deep ending here. So many things to go through.
Yeah.
And, please feel free, contact Jeff. And by the way, YouTube channel, Jeff Harman, astrologer, #1. Because, Jeff talking about also the workings of the economy, the politics, etc. Great stuff to listen through on how all of, the astrology can be explained on some of these world events, and then, eloquently spoken on how it's affecting, what to expect, and then if something were different, how it might play out differently astrology-wise. But if you're trying to get the bevy of information for a full layering of what's going on across the world's news feeds, this is one of the channels you're going to want to check out, because it does check a lot of those boxes. And also jeffharman.com. That's M-A-N, not M-O-N, Harman.com.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Because the names are so close, and I want to make sure people go over there, because there's so much value in the information that you present there. So I'm super excited that you came on and spent some time with me, and dissected a few of those charts that I sent you over, because I've had so many people asking about the energetic signatures of those, since I was really looking in to see what kind of effect that might have on humanity as we spin through the field. And then gravitationally, as a lot of the space debris gets tugged into us coming in April, like That would have a huge effect on humanity to watch a huge amount of bolides roll through every night or every couple of days. You have like massive meteor showers that haven't been cataloged before. That would spook humanity. So we're all in this together, and really the best way to move through it. And that's why I appreciate your time.
Oh, you bet. And thanks for having me on. Yeah, I think we're definitely on the precipice of a new era. And I think the United States, if the angels they formed this place on are strong, we may be the phoenix rising out of the ashes. I certainly hope so. Right now, it looks kind of dim and it looks kind of dire, and the demonics running everything at the top are definitely doing some very eerie things. But I still say wait, because if the astrology's right, we're going to see an exceedingly eventful 2024 and 2025. And I think the games begin this fall. I really do. I think we're going to see stuff happening this fall that's going to be off the charts, unprecedented.
So that means you might want to speed up in your preps.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for listening. Yeah, and bye for now.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Today, the demand for gold continues to flourish globally. History proves that fiat paper money is designed to go to zero through inflation, whereas gold has intrinsic value in which it maintains forever. Paper money is a debt instrument. Gold is an asset of wealth in its own right. It does not depend upon any governments, corporations, or individuals' promise to repay. ITM Trading has spent the last 27 plus years developing a team of expert researchers and analysts to make this possible. Simply put, we build strategies which are historically proven to protect your wealth and assets through any economic downturn or currency collapse. Schedule your free gold and silver strategy call 866-834-1422. That's 866-834-1422, or go to learn.itmtrading.com/MIAC and keep watching Mountain High Time and Mini Ice Age Conversations if you know what's good for you.